Bienvenidos, señores y señores, to another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting, and your favorite casino and card games are available to play right from your phone. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today. Get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts.
And joining us on the Carne Asada, you see him on the MLB Network. He gives us the baseball news that we need to know. And he's also a very proud Michigander. Jon Morosi. Jon, ¿cómo estás, amigo?
Todo bien, Juan. El placer es mío. Yo estoy muy honrado de hablar con usted sobre los Dodgers. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. Spanish, English, we can go any language you want for the balance of the conversation. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to talk about the Dodgers with you today.
Damn, that was not on my bingo card. That was very impressive, Jon. I really appreciate that you get the show. So let's get into it, Jon. Before we talk about the Dodgers and the Bravos, I do want to talk about the Dodgers trade acquisitions, because out here they got a lot of grief for not getting difference makers. But what they did get were guys who addressed problems, or however you want to say it, issues for them. It has now been a month since the trade deadline. How do you view these trade acquisitions the Dodgers made?
It made the Dodgers a more complete team, Juan. I really believe that. And whether it's Lance Lynn, who will get the ball in our showcase game on Thursday, the Braves and Dodgers on MLB Network, I think we've really noticed an uptick in his performance. And that's just a great credit to the Dodgers. It's amazing that when your organization and your infrastructure are that strong, to where you can take someone else who's got a 6 ERA elsewhere and say, you know what, we've noticed a couple things. And Mark Pryor and Danny Lehman and the full group of the Dodgers game preparation team can look at the data and say, let's use this pitch more, this pitch less. Let's work on this one mechanical adjustment and see how we do with that. And then you see the results. And on some level, it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, I believe, Juan, that the Dodgers are just so good at this, and their infrastructure is so good. They're collectively so smart that when players come in, they get better. There's a trust, and you might get the same piece of information from someone else in the industry, but when it comes from the game planning department of the Los Angeles Dodgers, or the pitching coach of the Dodgers, or the hitting coach of the Dodgers, it carries different weight, because everybody in the industry knows what the Dodgers have done since 2013, this amazing streak of playoff appearances. So I think it's a combination of getting the right people, the right students who will be receptive to the information that they're getting. So whether it's Lynn or Kelly or Kike and what he has meant to the organization coming back, I just think that collectively they've done a good job of bringing in additional players. And I think the final point I would make, Juan, is that the Dodgers, they don't need to bring in an MVP because they've already got two. In Mookie and Freddie. So depending on how the voting goes, and we'll see who the front runner ends up being, who actually gets the award. But for me, you've already got players at an MVP level, and the way that those two guys are playing is setting such a positive tone for the rest of the organization, to where I'm not sure how many other position players they needed beyond making sure that you had Kike and his versatility there as part of your club.
You know, so you mentioned on Thursday, it's the opening of a big series between the Dodgers and the Bravos. It's going to be on MLB Network. Jon, I don't know if this applies to baseball, but do you show your card too early? Like, are they really going to go all out in this series for fear that we're going to see each other hopefully down the road again in the postseason? Do you be careful how much you show in this series?
No, you don't. In my estimation, you don't. And first of all, these are two teams that love to compete, and two organizations that go way back. In the game today, Juan, I really believe there are almost no secrets left. The scouting is so good. The game planning is so precise that very rarely do you get to an October series and anyone says, wow, what we saw was a total surprise. We had no idea that was coming. Maybe at different times you'll show maybe you show a bunt here or there, a wrinkle, maybe you throw down to second base behind a runner as a back pick to try to keep them honest, or you back pick to first. Maybe you do some different things like that. But I would not expect that you're holding back anything. Lance Lynn's going to pitch to win this game. I mean, they still have home field to compete for, even though I think both are very comfortable division winners at this point. You still have to keep trying to finish with the best record. And now that best record is what guides home field advantage in the playoffs all the way through, you tend to really focus on that and consider where the seeding plays out and what it means to have a game 7 at home. So I think you play it straight up to the full extent that you can. You'll have Spencer Strider, who's going for a Cy Young potentially, pitching for the Braves in the opener of that series. So when you've got Olsen and Freeman on the same field and Acuna and Betts in the same field, everybody's competing for an MVP and for a division championship. I think there is going to be nothing held back by either team.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and that's where I wanted to go. First of all, do you have a vote in the MVP?
I don't this year. I'm an American League voter since I still live here in Michigan, so I'm an American League chapter voter. So that actually works well, Juan, for our conversation here, because I can give you my full, unvarnished, honest opinion without having to cover my tracks like I sometimes do when I talk about the awards that I'm actually voting on.
So, I mean, we've heard Mookie, we've heard Freddie, and we've heard Acuna, but the guy that I feel doesn't get talked about enough is Matt Olson and the season that he's having. John, can you fill in us Dodger fans, how great of a season he's having, actually?
Well, it's a great point, Juan, and obviously Olson succeeded Freddie as the first baseman in Atlanta. He's from the Atlanta area, actually went to the same high school as Jeff Francoeur, so this is a very, very proud baseball high school. And interestingly, in Olson's case, you might have the rare player who both plays all 162 and leads the league in home runs. The list of players who can say they've done that is quite small, at least in the recent history of the game. And so to see Olson do that and be as consistent as he's been, I think is a great credit to him and his professionalism, preparation. We had a game in Atlanta a couple weeks ago, and I was there on a Monday. The Braves had actually just gotten back in from New York. They had a rain out doubleheader, long travel, Sunday night baseball, all those challenges. And there he was at 4:00 before, 3 hours before the game starts, working on picks and scoops with Ron Washington, their infield coach. And so that would have been a very easy day to take that day off. Rest your body. It's August. It's hot. Why push it? Well, he pushes it because he wants to play every game. And I think that the mental fortitude of that Braves team and how many of their guys play every day, Juan, is a real tribute to them, their professionalism, and why they won a World Series 2 years ago and why they believe they can do it again. And so even though Olson was not on that World Series team in 21, he clearly embodies the professionalism that took them to that championship. He understands the organization. I think in a lot of years he'd be the runaway MVP. I think probably the odds right now are a bit against him, but who knows? I mean, one thing I've always said, Juan, when I voted for the MVP or a Cy Young, I really try purposely to not rank the players in my mind on the award that I'm voting on. Like for the NL MVP, I've already got thoughts on that. But for the awards that I'm voting on, and this year I'm doing Cy Young in the American League, I really purposefully don't talk about it. And I really don't even do a ton of homework on it because I want to wait until the last couple weeks of the season. Because sometimes you'll have someone that says, oh, in August, it's clearly this player. Well, don't get that stuck in your head and then keep having to either prove or disprove that theory. Let it play out. So I would hope that the NL MVP voters are still a couple weeks away from really doing the hard work on this, because I think to start the process now would almost be a little bit unfair to being thorough with how you actually fill out your ballot.
So you're still not going to give us your pick for NL MVP?
I can tell you NL MVP right now. I would say Mookie. I would say Mookie because not just his performance, Juan. I think that having Mookie come in and play second base opens up the rest of the Dodger lineup. Dave Roberts, what a luxury to have someone as talented as Mookie. You've got 2 future Hall of Famers in your lineup, another one in your rotation, and they are as selfless as you could possibly find among superstars in our game right now. So I would vote for Mookie again right now, and I'm fully comfortable saying that it's subject to change because I think you have to wait for all 6 months to be played. We're here at the 5-month mark. I just believe Mookie deserves it. He changes the lineup by his ability to play Gold Glove defense at multiple positions. So against a right-handed pitcher, you can have Mookie play second, and then your outfield is left-handed, left-handed, left-handed. Peralta, Outman, Hayward. And by the way, what a great story that you've got Hayward and Freddie back together again, close friends since their time in the Braves organization. So I just think you've got a lot of really professional people in this Dodger organization, and really on the Braves side too. That's why I personally enjoy this series and this matchup as much as any matchup in the game, because you've got a lot of players who I believe embody the very best of the game in terms of their athleticism, their passion for the sport, their leadership, their character. You've got a really great matchup of two collections of people, let alone ball players.
Last one, because I want to be respectful of your time, John. Out here, and it also seems on a national level, it seems the biggest concern going into the postseason for the Dodgers is the starting rotation. They need Julio, they need Kershaw to turn back the clock and pitch to how they pitched in the past. If they don't, what are the odds that they're even going to get to the NLCS against the Bravos?
I think that the Dodgers, if they don't get solid starting pitching, they're vulnerable in the first round, second round, any round. Obviously, to your point, you would expect them to get the bye through the wild card round and then into the next round, the division series. But even then, let's say you run up against the Milwaukee Brewers. That's no fun. That team right now is pitching as well as anybody else in Major League Baseball, and I would want no part of that team. You got Devin Williams at the back end of the game. No fun there. And their lineup has been newly fortified. Mark Canha's been great for them. Carlos Santana as well. So Milwaukee's a tough team to have to deal with. Any of the wild card teams, the Phillies, think about how good they were last year in the playoffs. So you've got to pitch. And I'll tell you this, Juan, the pitcher that I'm watching most carefully with the Los Angeles Dodgers right now is Julio Urias. In my opinion, he is probably the most important player on this roster as you get towards October. Certainly, you could argue Mookie or Freddie, and I agree because they're playing every day. But at least on the pitching staff, Julio Urias at an all-star level is the difference for me between an early exit and a World Series championship. If he is going to be like himself, like he has been in the past, dominant in the playoffs, if he could find that, he opens up a whole lot of opportunity. But to your point, when you think about Gonsolin out, Buehler probably shorter bursts, Dustin May is out, you start going down your list of who can I really rely on to give me a 6 or 7 inning start. Otherwise, if Kershaw is a 5-inning guy or a 6-inning guy and Buehler might be a 4 or 5-inning guy, there's no Gonsolin, then you start counting innings. And if you get to a game 5 against Milwaukee, who's left? So you need Urias to not just be good, but to give you a good quantity of innings. Quality and quantity. You need that from someone. Kershaw's getting up there in years. It might not be quite as fair to ask him to be an 8-inning maestro in the playoffs. That pitcher, based on age, accomplishment, what he means to the organization, Julio Urias needs to be that guy.
And there you have it. Muchas gracias to our compadre, Jon Morosi, for laying down the information and that perspective. Us homers, we look at it through a different lens, John. So I appreciate you keeping it real and very grateful for your time. Again, Thursday, the MLB Network will be showing the first game of this Dodgers Bravo series. John, muchas gracias, amigo.
Juan, el placer es mío. Estamos hablando y nos vemos a Dodger Stadium durante esta post-temporada.
Awesome. I love it.
Gracias.
And a big thank you once again to Jon Morosi of MLB Network for joining us on the show and giving us that preview of the Dodgers and the Bravos. Joining me now on the show is one of our favorite shit talkers, the president of the Austin Barnes fan club, the boatman, Jason Barquero. Jason, ¿cómo estás, amigo?
Muy bien, gracias, and thank you for having me for Noah Syndergaard talk. And wrong episode. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm starting
I'm
my
glad
own.
you brought that up because I do want to ask you. But how have you been, man? What do you got to share with us?
I wanted to share something really quick. I had to. It happened to me today in about the third inning, and I said, "Ooh, I got a good one to start out for the show." So I'm watching the Dodger game. My 11-year-old daughter walks in, and she's like, "Oh," I can't even say this with a straight face. And she says, "Oh," she goes, "Papi," she said, "Is that Ryan Popote is pitching?" I said, "Did you say Popote?" Said it's Pepio. I was busting up. I said, "Oh, I got to share this with the guys." So that is the new nickname, Ryan Popote. That is the most Mexican thing that has happened in my household in days. So I just had to share that. That literally happened about 2 hours ago. It was too funny. Too funny.
Next time we have Popote on the show, we have to let him know, hey man, I know you're French and all, but your Mexican nickname is Popote. So when you come on, when you're out there on the mound, you are Popote. Boatman, I want to get your thoughts on what Morosi was saying. First of all, his opinion on the trade acquisitions that the Dodgers have made. It is now close to a month that we've been seeing that these guys that they traded for have been contributing. One of the guys that I didn't even get to ask him about, but I don't think we talk about enough, pitched in this game. At the time that we're recording, the Dodgers are playing the Serpientes in the final game of this 3-game set, and it looks like they're about to sweep. But Ryan Yarbrough, this guy, I think, has been an under the radar acquisition. Like, he comes in, he pitches 3 or 4 innings every game. He plays in, he piggybacks the starter, and he's just been solid, man, under the radar. What do you think about all the rest of these trade acquisitions?
It's been great. I mean, let's call it what it is. I can't even talk shit like you would say about any of these moves. They've all panned out as better than expected. You got to give the Dodger brass. You got to give the folks doing the homework. You got to give them a lot of credit. I'm really impressed. I mean, none of these folks are superstar, or not anymore, anyways. Right? Jason Hayward was a superstar. He's maybe not where he would want to be, but he's still very productive, very good, and just an amazing teammate. But I know that's an acquisition before the season, but still, when you put the pieces, so I'm counting everything that happened even before the season. And I think Fred Rogan was talking about this week about just no one expected the team to be this good. They are definitely outperforming. You can go back. I think I said that very early on this show many months ago. I gave this team a 92-win season. I think might have been my prediction, 92, 90, something like that, low 90s. They're on pace to win a little over 100 if they keep this pace. But even if under that pace, they could hit 100 wins. That's insane. So going back to your question, look, I think what the Dodgers have pieced together when you talk about pitching, because I know that's something that Morosi harped on quite a bit, and he's absolutely right. That is the Achilles, if there is one, for the Dodgers, right? The hitting is there. They're going to have to score runs because I don't anticipate that the pitching is going to be perfection. But the Yarbroughs, all these different players that they've brought up and they've been developing now, you're not going to get 7 innings, like he said, out of anyone. But quite frankly, in the postseason, does anyone really go 7 innings anymore? I mean, you don't see the Madison Bumgarner type of games that you saw back in the last decade or so, right? And so you're going to get 5 innings, 4 innings in some cases. The Dodgers have actually done a lot of this where they have bullpen games, and so they've mastered that, I feel, really well. Or they've had these starters that go 3 or 4 innings. I think we're going to see a lot of that in the postseason. It's not sexy. It's not what people want. You're not going to have these Oro Hershiser or Fernando Valenzuela moments where they're going to go full games. But you know what? It's a different era. And so you're going to get what you're going to get out of Kershaw, 5 innings, which, and I know this is a bad joke, but those of us know that he's good for 6 in the postseason anyways. So this keeps him out of any trouble. So I'm actually very excited about that. And so I think you're going to see a lot of guys playing this mid-relief role that's going to be so key. So I have more to say about that, but to answer your question, yeah, I mean, you got to be impressed with Lance Lynn. You got to be impressed with everyone on there that they brought on board. It's the pieces to the puzzle that they needed. And look, they're doing great. And I love that they're sweeping the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks came in hot. They came in red hot. And I was, and so the Dodgers did what they needed to do, take the series, detain the Diamondbacks a little bit, push them back. The last thing you want is for
them to get really hot and the Dodgers to get, really slow going into September. I haven't been this excited about the team. I'll be honest with you. You're not going to get a lot of shit talking today. Even Austin Barnes is going to get some love. Then he hit a double or something. Damn, Austin, you're not making my job any fun. You're not going to have me back on this podcast anymore if I'm too nice.
I mean, look, at this point, it's a very interesting because we had friend of the Carnesada, Dylan Hernandez, on the show, and he was very critical, along with Plaschke, about the fact that the Dodgers didn't get difference makers at the trade deadline. But so far, the guys they have traded have solved issues for them.
Absolutely.
But like I was talking with Dylan, in the end, these trade acquisitions are not going to be measured by the regular season. Because Morosi said it. It was like, look, they didn't need much help in order to win the division. Right. What these moves are going to be measured about is how they do in the postseason. So, babyface, I say to you, Morosi seems to think the pitching staff is the Achilles heel. Everybody we talk to is worried about the pitching staff. I mean, Dylan in previous episodes had us already by game 3 pitching a bullpen game. Do you think these acquisitions that they made is going to pay a dividend in the postseason, babyface? This year is going to be different.
I mean, the thing with the pitching staff is we've been saying this all year. It's like we didn't understand how it kind of stuck together, right? It was kind of just taping it together, right, and going through. And now they're finally kind of like they're on a road, they're on a groove, they're pitching well. And what kind of gives me optimism is that they face teams that are pretty good, right? Especially coming after the All-Star break, right? They played the Orioles, right? Second best record in the league, right? And they took care of business there. They played the Rangers. They took care of business there, right? They played some other postseason teams like Arizona, Miami, right? And it's the same pitchers that are going into the postseason. So that kind of gives me optimism that, you know what, they can handle it. And, if they don't give them 7 innings, right, we're seeing what this offense can do, right? And even if they don't get it from the starter, they'll somehow get it later on, in the 6th, 7th inning. Usually they're getting those big hits. So, but this next series, and we're going to talk about it against Arizona, I think it's a real huge test, right? Obviously, see where they match up, and like Morosi was saying,
you mean the Bravos?
Yeah, when the Rays come to town, yeah. I think it's a big series, kind of see where they match up. If they're going for it, if they're not holding anything back, we're going to definitely see a huge series. And Dodgers still have, if they want that home field advantage, right? If they walk away with a sweep, they're tied with them. So I think it's going to be a big series to kind of see where they're at.
The one thing that I think we can't lose sight of, and I know the offense has just been spectacular since the All-Star break. They've been on this ridiculous run. I don't expect that this offense is going to play like this in the playoffs. It's just not going to happen. So what concerns me is when you have guys like Bobby Miller give up 4 runs, I don't expect the Dodgers are going to be giving you 7-run support in the playoffs. So that's the thing, that when all these national guys or these guys who aren't homers, when they're being honest with us, that's what the concern is. It's just like, yeah, right now this offense, I think, is carrying this team because, okay, yeah, the starters gave up 4 runs and they were able to win the game. Well, they won the game because the offense dropped 7. They dropped 8. And I just don't think that's going to happen in the playoffs. But one of the things that he talked about on there, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Boatman, is the MVP talk. Because all of a sudden, this conversation has taken a turn. I think probably before the month of August, I think it was a foregone conclusion that Acuna was the MVP. And now all of a sudden, with the month that Mookie is having, I know Morosi says Mookie is the MVP. In the end, I don't think Mookie's going to win. And I don't think Freddie Freeman's going to win because I think those dudes are going to split the vote. They're going to take votes from one another. And I think Acuna is going to benefit from that. Now, we've had a lot of, our listeners, our viewers have been chiming in a lot of back and forth between Mookie and Freddie.
The argument that Morosi made for Mookie being MVP, I think, is a very strong and valid argument. But we had one of our listeners say, look, Freeman has been doing this all year.
Right.
I can't think that you can't forget. You can't take Freddie for free, Freddie, for granted here. Boatman, I mean, how is this MVP race shaping up for you?
I actually have Mookie Betts as third place. He's not my MVP. It's between Freddie Freeman and Ronald Acuna. I think the numbers are better. I'm a big batting average guy. And when you got guys who Acuna's at 334, I just checked right now. I don't know where Mookie is at. Now, Mookie has been making a case for it because he was, 280s, 290s, and all of a sudden the guy's hitting 310, 312, what have you, and hitting a ton of home runs. He's making it interesting. If it was between those two, the reason why I would still vote for Acuna are the stolen bases. And so I think you have to put the whole package together. Now, Freddie Freeman, no one talks about Freddie. Freddie's he's on the verge of winning the batting title for the National League. I mean, I think he has number one batting average. That's something. That's saying a lot. In terms of home runs, he's right up there, not as strong as Mookie, but he has a much better batting average. Now, he does. You get into what they look like out on the field in terms of who's a Gold Glover and what have you. Then Mookie has been very versatile, so I get that, and I think Morosi talked about that, about the versatility, and that says a lot for a player. You can move into second, go into the outfield. He's a 5-tool player. It's tough, man. It's tough, but I have Acuna above Mookie, but I'm torn of where Freddie falls in this, and so I really think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the bias of whoever's doing the votes. And I think if someone from LA wins, they're going to say, well, there's a lot of writers that are Dodger fans and the bias there. And so I think there's a very good chance that could happen. It probably will be a Dodger. But boy, oh boy, they're making it tough, really tough. I think in the next 30 days or so, I think we'll see it begin to spread out a little bit. We'll see who falls off, and we'll have a clear winner there. But I would say right now it's Acuna for me. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that.
Well, the thing was, and I'm talking about it with Morosi. Matt Olson is having a ridiculous season, right? But for some reason, he's not talked about as much in this race, and I don't see Matt Olson taking the amount of votes away from Acuna that Federico Hombre Libre is going to take from Mookie or vice versa. Now, I know you just mentioned a trigger word for Babyface, so I'm going to let Babyface chomp at the bit here. The stolen base stat with Acuna, Babyface. I know you want to, do you take umbrage with that stat?
If this was any season before this season, yes. Since the rule change, that stat is not the same anymore. If the rule change was in place when Ricky Henderson was around, guy would be stealing 200 bags a year. Yeah. So because they could only disengage 2 times, third time they got to make sure they get them out. The bags are bigger. That stat is no longer the same. So Acuna wasn't stealing 60 bags, 70 bags prior to this season. So that you have to take that stat with a grain of salt. So that's why I don't think it's a big deal anymore. And I think the writers see that as well, that it is kind of a stat that doesn't have its same value, doesn't have that same glistening. It's not glistening the same. So, I mean, what Morosi said though with Mookie, I mean, Mookie. We were talking about this at the beginning of the year, right? When Mookie was hitting I think he was hitting 240, 250.
Yeah.
Then he got to 260, and we're like, that's not Mookie, right? We'd be happy if he got to 280, and then he got there. He's hitting 310 or something like that now. So he's definitely raised that average. Guy's gonna hit 40 bombs, right? He's playing right field. He played short. He's playing second. So that to me, like I said, when you're looking at MVP, the guy that's most valuable on your team, the guy that's gonna do anything for your team to win, I mean, that's Mookie. Right. I mean, Freddie obviously has had a great season as well. But I think one of the big metrics that they look at is WAR. And who's leading in WAR right now? It's Mookie Betts. So I think that's why when it comes all said and done at the end, if Mookie's still up there and leading in WAR, I think he's going to be MVP. And the thing with splitting, it's not going to be a unanimous vote. It's not going to be one guy unanimously, I mean, it's going to get spread out between those guys: Mookie, Freeman, Acuna, Olsen. I've even heard Bellinger getting votes, so I think it's going to be all spread out.
Put a pin in the Bellinger thing. We're going to revisit that conversation. But I like you, Boatman, I'm a big batting average guy too. And the thing is if you compare Mookie and Acuna's numbers, they're pretty close. Like,
Yeah.
It breaks down almost even, right? But here's the thing about Federico. Federico might win the batting title. And at the even just like maybe 2 months ago, I don't know if that was possible because Luis Arraez was having a ridiculous season. The guy was flirting with 400. Nobody thought, oh, that no one's going to catch that guy. That's a done deal. That guy's going to win the batting title. And then slow and steady, here comes Federico. And now Federico, he might overtake him and win the batting title. Mind you, also, this is a ridiculous stat. And correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Babyface. Federico might get 60 doubles this year. That hasn't been done since like the 1930s, or was it the 1920s that someone has hit 60 doubles?
And maybe 30 home runs as well.
I mean, this is how insane this MVP race is going to be, because I think you also have the confusion that when it comes to voting for MVP, what are you voting on? Because the argument that Babyface makes in terms of what is value, I totally buy that argument for Mookie. But at the same time, how many writers vote because you're the best player on the best team in the league? Which I think Acuna is going to get a lot of those votes. The Braves are the best team in all of Major League Baseball. Acuna plays for it. Acuna is a big contributor on that. And then I think there's people who vote on who is just the best player in baseball. So that argument there is, do people view Acuna as being the best baseball player in baseball? The season that Mookie is having right now, this is what I thought the Dodgers were going to get with Mookie. The guy who hits over 300, the guy who's hitting home runs, like all this other stuff of him playing different positions, I didn't expect that. I mean, that's just added. But, Babyface and I have talked about this before. Like in past seasons, we thought Mookie's batting average was kind of low. I was like, wasn't he like a 300 hitter in Boston? But so now the version of Mookie that we're seeing right now is just so impressive. But Boatman, do you have a clear definition on if you had a vote, like what are you basing your vote on for MVP?
Yeah, I would base it on who's the best player in the league. That's what I typically would vote for. And I think that's in general what most people would vote for when it's a clear winner. It's really tough here. Matt Olson is hitting 271. He'll get some votes, but he's not the MVP. You can't be that far off. You can't be 60 percentage points behind somebody and even come close. That's just not going to happen. And so it's not nearly as good of a hitter as these other guys are, Going back to the stolen bases, though, when I look at Mookie Betts, he only has 10. And so I get it. The bases are bigger, but they're bigger for everyone. And so he's got only 10 bags. And the fact that this guy has 60 and he's taking advantage of the fact that, hey, I can steal some bases, that says a lot, right? And so I'm looking at that also.
Mookie is also 30. Acuna is 23.
Age doesn't matter, the MVP.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Speed does.
No, but not the age. I'm not voting based on
age.
But the
speed does. I mean, he's not 23-year-old Mookie Betts that's going to go out there and steal 50 bags.
He's not, but he's had his day. And so I don't care. No, it's a good point. You're right if you're not comparing apples to apples, but the MVP is statistically who is the most valuable player in the league without accounting for age, to be honest. I'm not accounting for age. I don't think we should. I get it. We can.
So why isn't Acuna playing shortstop or third base?
Oh, because they don't need him to play shortstop in the second.
No,
we do
because he can't.
we don't even have a decent second baseman.
And he's not. And also,
when back out there starting.
When you take into account for most valuable players, it's got to be on both sides of the ball,
right?
Not just offense and defense.
Dude, are you saying that Acuna is a chump on defense? I mean, he's a damn good outfielder.
No, but it's got to be on both sides of the ball. And when you see what Mookie's doing on both sides of the ball, like at different positions, I think that outweighs Acuna.
All right, so let me get in on this age thing. Since you guys are ageist and you guys are discriminating against old people, then how do you defend Mookie when Federico has more stolen bases than he does, and Federico's older?
Well, that's another point.
Federico's the oldest one of this group, and he has more stolen bases than Mookie.
Did you see Jeff Passan's truth bomb that he sent out a couple of days ago?
Yeah, I did see that.
About the runs created on steals. Freddie has more runs created than Acuna does, and Acuna has 60 stolen bases. He's just stealing bases.
Well, that has a lot to do with
it's not actually creating runs, though. It's not actually creating runs.
But that has a lot
to do with I don't think there's a stat that you're just stealing bases for stealing bases. If you steal a base, it is still helping your team, man.
But you can steal a base and not score, though.
But that's not your fault. That's who's hitting behind you. That's their fault.
But a stolen base is more valuable if it's cashed in.
But that's not my fault, though. See, I should not be rated on whether it's cashed in. That's the other guy. If I'm in a crappy, shitty team, then that's not my fault. They couldn't bring me in. I will say this though, and I
just got a vision. Boatman's the guy's like, I went 4 for 4 today. I don't know what the fuck you guys did. I went 4 for 4.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. To Roger's point, here's where teammates who you're hitting around matters. This is why I give Mookie credit. He doesn't have anybody strong hitting behind. I'm sorry, where I give Freddie Freeman credit. Mookie gets to lead off and has Freddie Freeman hitting behind him. That's an advantage. You have an MVP guy. Who's hitting behind Freddie Freeman? Remind me who hits behind Freddie every night?
But that's another stat.
Who hits behind him? Will Smith, a guy who doesn't really threaten anybody. So the fact I give Freddie Freeman bonus points. I mean, call Will Smith a general, a decent guy, good family guy, I'm sure. But here's the thing, Mookie Betts, and you got Freddie Freeman behind you. I'm taking some points away. Okay, I'm giving now. Who hits behind Ronald Acuna? No, I'm really curious. Who hits behind Acuna?
That lineup is stacked. If you haven't looked at the Braves
exactly.
lineup.
So now all of a sudden, I've given Freddie Freeman because after Freddie. Let's face it, the Dodgers are where they are because they got two guys that are playing amazing baseball.
Mookie is a leadoff hitter that's going to hit 40 bombs and have over 100 runs.
If you put Will Smith behind Mookie, he does not hit those many home runs, and his average is not 3. I would venture to guess that the reason he's having that good of a year also is because Freddie's also having a great year, even though he has a great year every year. It works for him. I'm not trying to take anything a lot away from Mookie. But you do have to look at who hits behind you. If you put me in front of a guy that hits, that sucks for me. Because now folks are going to play around with me, and they're not going to give me meatballs to hit. People are wondering why Mookie's blasting. Like, well, because they don't want to walk him and have to face the other behemoth behind him. So, you kind of have to look at that, too. And because after Freddie Freeman, there really isn't anyone that's really scaring me a heck of a whole lot. They're good hitters, but there's an advantage there for Mookie to be hitting in front of Freddie Freeman, I think.
That's a very interesting point, Boatman. And that was like get on the boat moment right there. Everybody get on the boat. The Boatman came in strong. I agree with you in this sense, Boatman. I think there is Will Smith is a very good player, but there is a big drop off from going from Federico to Will Smith. But here's like when we look at the Bravos lineup, okay, Ozzie Albies is hitting behind Acuna. Ozzie Albies is hitting 269 right now. So I think there's some truth to what the Boatman is saying, Babyface. I think you need to get on the boat on this. Get on the boat.
I see who the instigator is.
You got Albies, Riley, Olsen. Like, you can tell me that's not a pretty tough lineup hitting after Acuna?
But it's not Federico. None of those guys that you just mentioned right now. Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley.
So multiple All-Star Ozzie Albies is just.
Oh wow! Are you really telling me right now you're putting Ozzie Albies in the same category as Federico?
He's a multiple All-Star, right? He's a great player, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
There's no and look there is no. I'm not a comic book guy, so I'm not using the proper verbiage here. In Bizarro World, there is no world where I would put Ozzie Albies in the same category as Federico. There is a difference there to the point that the Boatman is making. that Mookie is getting a level of protection with Federico that I don't think Acuna is getting with Albies.
Remember when Jeff Kent got upset because the media was insinuating that he was having a great year after they signed Manny Ramirez? And guess what? They were right. Get Manny behind you.
Go look up how many home runs Albies has.
28. That's right. I just looked at. Yeah. No, Albies the better hitter than Will Smith. I think, or more of a threat. More of a.
So
threat.
we're going to completely disregard.
He's on par with how many home runs Freddie Freeman has. So
and what's the batting average?
I mean, batting average does not count for anything now.
Of course it does. You're getting on base more often. You're getting hits.
Today's game. People do not care about batting average.
No.
I guess we're just old school.
But it's simple math. If you get on base more often, the more likelihood you're going to score. I mean, it's like what's his name? Oh gosh, I'm drawing blanks right now. Our third baseman here. Why am I?
Max Muncy.
Muncy. Thank you.
Muncy. Right now, before this,
I would rather have Justin Turner.
His average was like at 180 or something. He's up to like 205 or whatever.
Yeah, he might get a few.
His OPS is like at 830. He has like 30 home runs, and people are like, he's having a great season.
I would rather have Justin Turner. I would rather have Justin Turner at third base right now than Max Muncy. Absolutely. That guy gets on base more. I love to see singles more than I love to see all these home runs. I would rather see a Max Muncy that hits me 250 and hits 20 home runs than 200, and maybe I get one home run out of him on average once a week, maybe sometimes twice a week, but on average really once to twice a week. But then it's feast or famine the rest of the way, right? Look, the guy's having a good year as far as Max Muncy's go, but he's going to strike out like crazy. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Now you need him in the lineup because he's going to get you one big knock, but you can't ignore when a guy's hitting 330, 340 compared to 270, 260. It's just money when you're hitting at that rate. I mean, it's insane. I don't know. I'm still old school when it comes to stuff like that. I like to see guys get on base.
Look, this debate for the MVP, I think, is going to go on for at least another month, and it's going to be very exciting to see what these guys do facing each other this weekend. If Mookie, if Federico have big series, or if Acuna comes in and puts on a show, if Matt Olson puts on a show, and maybe who should be in the MVP conversation, Ozzie Albies, if he puts on a show. It's going to be very interesting to watch. Now, you mentioned another guy who you've heard some MVP chatter about. I want to invoke Cody Bellinger's name because I don't know if you guys heard what Scott Boras had to say about Cody Bellinger and how the Dodgers handled his injury. They were basically saying Bellinger was playing hurt this whole time. And what the Dodgers were doing, was actually hurting Bellinger. I bring this up because I think this is interesting because of what happened with Tony Gonsolin. There's a lot of people out there who owe Tony Gonsolin an apology because Tony Gonsolin was pitching hurt for a long time. Now, when the Dodgers sit there and say, well, he didn't tell us, how bad he was hurting, because I know, Babyface, you were asking this question the whole season when they kept bringing up this whole, like, he's not recovering well, he's not, and you had said, well, then why are they letting him pitch? If there is something wrong with him, why are they letting him pitch? Now, if it's true, because they've interviewed Gonsolin, that he was doing this for the team because the team didn't have enough starting pitching, that man is owed an apology. And he literally took one for the team because he's going to be out all of next season. But are there concerns to you guys the way the Dodgers are handling injuries with these players? If it's true that Bellinger's shoulder, and maybe it took Bellinger longer to heal from it, Boatman, are you concerned at all the way the Dodgers managed? Because Friedman came out and answered Boris's insinuation saying he's wrong. We didn't do anything wrong the way they managed Cody Bellinger.
No, I agree with Friedman. I think they're finding excuses, and Boris is trying to find excuses for the fact that this guy sucked for like 3 years. Okay, I mean, yeah, he got hurt for a little bit, but if he was hurt, he shouldn't have played. He shouldn't have played. This is the thing that makes me very upset, and I've talked to other people about this too, way before. You see these pitchers go out there, and you know something's wrong. You know something's wrong. A lot of times they're not saying anything, and they're hiding it because they don't want to lose their spot. Now, I want to know if he told the Dodgers, if he in fact told Dave Roberts, I can't pitch. I'm in pain. I don't want to pitch. If he told management that, I guarantee you they would say, okay, we're going to shut you down. He did not do that. So players do this out of greed. The point that I'm trying to make here is when players don't speak out and say, I can't play, they're going to get, oh, well, I'm afraid to get criticized that, you're not a gamer. You're not Kobe Bryant. You're not going to pay through the pain. Not everyone has that level of pain tolerance. Okay. So it's very different for it's just this human body. But if the player is not asking to sit themselves down, then I'm blaming the player because a lot of these players don't want to lose their spot. They're choosing themselves over the team. And that makes me very upset when I see guys out there that are clearly hurt. And then 30 days later, oh, the guy's is on the DL. Well, he should have been on the DL 30 days ago. So unless he didn't say something, I want to see more. With Cody Bellinger, yes, we know he was hurt, but he had one good first half season back in 2019, I believe it was. That's it. From the second half of that season, he went down the drain and never found himself again for 3.5 years. In Chicago, where he was playing meaningless baseball and he didn't have any pressure behind him, that's why the guy does well. Some players do really well in cities where it matters. Boston, New York, LA. That's why I give Mookie a lot of credit. That guy's a gamer. I give Justin Turner that kind of credit. I don't think Cody likes that pressure. He's not an LA guy. Now Chicago's doing well. That's great. But I don't think he's that kind of gamer. If he found his game, fantastic. But it irritates me to hear their agents and hear them come out and give excuses for how the Dodgers manage through these injuries. I don't think the Dodgers are forcing players to play through injuries. I highly doubt that. But I'd want to know more. I'd want to hear from Tony himself, which he's not going to do. He's not going to say. But unless he says, no, I told them not to play me, but they forced me to go out there. And I know they didn't force him. You don't force these big leaguers to go out there. They'll go out there themselves.
Damn it. Get on the boat, everybody. Get on the boat, for the boatman says. It's interesting that you make that point, though, boatman, because I think you literally have described the opposite of what's happening to Anthony Rendon down in Anaheim, because Anthony Rendon is getting a bunch of crap for not playing because Anthony Rendon is just going through a horrible season of injury where he's constantly getting hurt. And over there, people, they're talking about just DFAing him, release him, cut him, and all that stuff. So there is both sides to that argument. But I see your point, Babyface. Where do you stand on this? Do you think there's any malpractice side on the Dodgers, who are notoriously known for being conservative with players that are showing any signs of injury? They do shut them down. So when Scott Boras is coming out there shooting these shots, do you give this any credence?
I mean, like Jason was saying, I mean, this is for 2 seasons. When you hurt his shoulder in 2020, right? With the Kike thing, right? And then after that,
let's give credit to where it's due. Kike broke his shoulder, but yet every Dodger fan roots for Kike. So
2021, he had a horrible season. 2022 so I mean, I think he should have got better along the way. And I think it's just Boras talking, right? Because Bellinger's a free agent at the end of the season, right? And he's having a great year. So, like, what they're looking for at the end of the season, right? They're looking for
a payday.
They're going to want a big fat payday with probably, in the 300 million mark. So, I mean, of course he's going to say that, I mean, and the thing with Bellinger is, okay, can he duplicate it again? Can he do this again next season? And then because some team's going to pony up and be like, you know what, we'll give you a 5, 6, 7 year, 8 deal. And is he going to go wherever he goes, or if he stays in Chicago, is he going to duplicate that, going forward? Remains to be seen. I mean, the thing with Gonsolin, though, is he said back in June he got that MRI that showed that he had the tear and he needed it. So that's what I don't understand. Like, if you got it in June, why aren't they shutting this guy down? Like, I mean,
because the doctor said he could pitch with it. He wasn't going to do himself more harm.
I mean, I kind of find that hard to believe. Like, how are you not going to do yourself more harm, pitching with a torn, a ligament. I mean, I don't understand that, but I mean,
I agree with you. So that's why I'm asking you: is this malpractice that this doctor told him you can keep? It was Dr. Neil Attaché, who is a very well-respected surgeon. He's the one that told him he could keep pitching with it. So I don't know if it's any different than what they're telling Shohei, because I know Shohei's getting a second opinion and all that stuff. If Shohei, who said, no, I didn't want an MRI, if they were telling him the same thing, no, you can pitch through it, you can pitch through it. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, whether he should have been pitching with it or not, obviously the dude was pitching hurt. And I think what the boatman is saying is probably true. He didn't want to lose his spot, but at the same time, that team had a lot of pitchers on the IL. They had nowhere else. They were literally going to go to the park and get somebody. Hey, you want to pitch for us? Can you pitch? Can you give us a couple of innings? So I think the guy deserves at least a little credit for going out there and pitching where he could have very easily just said, shut me down.
Yeah, I mean, if your dude's pitching out there, like I said, with a freaking, needing Tommy John, right? I mean, obviously, this guy, deserves a lot of credit for going to that. I mean, I can't imagine how much that hurts, right? As you're pitching, still trying to get your velocity up, But yeah, I mean, like Jason said, he should have just said, hey, you know what, I'm not pitching, or Dodgers should have said, hey, we're not going to pitch you anymore. I mean, I think that really kind of does not. I don't think that helps anybody, right? You're sending out a pitcher that's hurt out there, and we saw it with Tony. Like, he had games that were really bad, and we're like, what the heck's wrong with Tony Gonsolin, right? Yeah. And they just say, like, he's dealing with stuff, and like, they wouldn't say it. I mean, it's like, just the dude needs Tommy John. Like, let him get Tommy John. And also, it also impacts, like, if it's back in June, the guy could have Tommy John in July, and maybe he comes back next season. But now he's having it, beginning in September. And he's gone until 2025. So it's like, if you need it, kind of just get it done and get it over with and start the rehab.
Do we know who Noah Syndergaard's doctor is? I'm just curious if that's a different
and there we go. It's a perfect segue. Boatman, what are your thoughts on the Guardians releasing Noah Syndergaard?
Hey, Wookie, he didn't have a bad game against the Dodgers the other day. So
it was the revenge game. He lived long enough to get his revenge.
He sure
and now
did.
He's going to take his money.
I mean, look, all joking aside, you don't want to see people's careers end, and the guy was great while it lasted, and so you're
on mute, Boatman. You went on mute.
Oh, well, some say that's my best stuff. Okay, but anyhow, what I was saying was, you feel bad for the guy. You don't want to see anyone get hurt, and so he was great while it lasted, what I was saying. And so, but that might be the end of the road for him. I think when a couple of teams have already said that's it, that could be it for the guy, and so, is anyone going to pick him up? I think it's doubtful at this point. So he's going to have to make some real decisions here at the end of the season.
So that leads me to this. The Angels decided to put half their team on waivers. So there are some interesting names on there that I don't think the Dodgers are going to get any chances at claiming them, because I think the Dodgers are the third to last team to be able to claim anybody in terms of the orders. So I think if any one of those people that they put on waivers, the Matt Moore kid is someone I would love to see in the Dodgers bullpen. But Babyface, I know you were talking about earlier about Giolito. So can you make the argument for me why the Dodgers should, take a flyer on Giolito?
Well, I'm not saying they should take a flyer, but I find it interesting, that, these certain guys like Giolito, he was coveted at the trade deadline, and then he goes to the Angels, and, he wasn't successful at all, right? And then, when you look at somebody like Lance Lynn, he wasn't doing very good at all in Chicago, and he comes to LA and he turns the season around. Like, so my point is, can that same thing be done for somebody like Giolito, right? Does it depend where they land? Like, if Giolito would have came to LA, would he have been really good, right? Or would he have been the version that the Angels got? That's what I'm kind of saying. Like, there's some magic, right, with the Dodgers do. And like you mentioned, yeah, it's not going to happen every single time. 9 out of 10 times, maybe it probably will. It didn't happen for Noah Syndergaard. But you never know. If you bring in a guy like Giolito, you never know what you might get.
So let me ask you this. Do you think the Dodgers saw something in Giolito, but the price tag was too high, and that's why they didn't go for Giolito, and instead they settled for Lance Lynn?
Well, that's the thing, too, that I was mentioning, too, is like, I think they have to see something, like, be like, you know what? There's something there that we know we can fix. So let's kind of go after that guy. And I don't know if they were ever in a Giolito. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they never saw something there that thought, you know what, we can help this guy. He could help us. And they saw it with Lynn. They've seen it in other guys. I mean, look at Tyler Anderson. I mean, the guy came over to the Dodgers. The guy's a stud. He goes to the Angels.
Yeah.
And the guy's imploded, right? So
he got paid.
There's definitely something there that Mark Pryor does to these guys. And if he sees a guy and he thinks, you know what, I can fix this guy, most of the time it does work.
Boatman, would you claim any of those guys that the Angels put on waivers?
I wouldn't claim anything the Angels put out there. Look, I don't know. I think here's my only fear. I don't want them to get too excited about adding. I guess you could add these guys and not have to play them in the playoffs. But I think the Dodgers might feel like they may be okay. There's no one out there, I think, that could take someone's spot right now. Now, of course, you're losing Gonsolin, what have you. I mean, you might have Buehler coming back. So I don't know if they even want to take that on. So maybe, these projects, I think, like what Roger said, I think he said it well. The Dodgers have done a great job. Mike Pryor has done a great job with some of these folks and really knowing who to bring on board and fix. Who am I to say, they shouldn't waste their time getting this guy? I'm not an expert. They may see something and they can turn it around. Great. I just don't know if there's anyone out there right now, I guess what I'm trying to say, that is better than what the Dodgers already have, if that makes any sense, right? To say that guy deserves a spot over this guy.
Well, I think another great point that you put on there, because I'm like, well, what do they have to lose? It's just extra money with Giolito, right? But if they could fix Giolito, I mean, that would be a great person to have in the rotation for the playoffs. But you brought something up, and that is the Buehler thing. Is it maybe they're hesitant to go after another starter because they want to see what Buehler can, if Buehler is going to be able to come back in September, and where does he fit? So maybe, but like I said, to me, of the ones they put on there, the bullpen arms are the ones that really intrigue me. But all the other people that are fighting to get into the wild card, they're going to claim those guys.
Yeah,
they're not going to get to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go into the picks, everybody. Unfortunately, last week we did not have a winner because the Dodgers just, of course, continue. We have a final here, and that is the Dodgers have defeated the Diamondbacks, the Serpientes. What was the final score? Was it 7-0, or did they end up giving up a run?
7-0.
So they sweep the Diamondbacks. And then they took 2 out of 3 in Boston. So the Dodgers ended up going 5-1. The closest to it was La Reina de Playa Larga, who she went 4-2. But of course,
no, that was me.
Oh, you went 4-2. That's right. La Reina went 3-3 with me. Real quick, she's not here. So next time we have her on the show, we need to ask her about her trip. She was in Boston. But real quick, your thoughts on that series, Boatman, between the Doyers and the Red Sox, and the reunion that took place, basically, because it seems like only the Dodgers and the Red Sox do business with each other.
Yeah, and I saw some videos of some Red Sox fans out there heckling Dodger fans, saying things like, well, you guys basically are the Red Sox of the West and this and that. And hey, we got guys that know what they're doing in the front office. That's what that tells me. So it was great. It was it tells you about what we have in Mookie Betts outside of the diamond, right? That you have an amazing player who's an MVP caliber player, but at the same time, just a guy that people love. He's a great teammate, just a great community guy. The Boston fans love the guy. He's come to LA. He's done the same thing here in the city. And so it's really neat to see that. It makes me feel good as a Dodger fan knowing we did the right thing here. This is just a franchise guy that I hope sticks around for the extent of his entire contract. and finishes his career as a Dodger. For all intents and purposes. And so I love to see guys like that, guys like Justin Turner as well on the flip side too, right? I'm not comparing him statistically to Mookie Betts, but in terms of a franchise guy, that's to me, he's a Dodger. Hope if he had to enter the Hall of Fame, I would hope he retired a Dodger if such a thing existed. He's just that guy. And so it stings a little bit to see him in a Red Sox uniform, but I'm really excited that he's continued to prove everyone, including the Dodgers, hey, I still got it. Right. And so those were the moments I think that I kind of look at that series and say that was pretty fun to see those faces out there. And I think the Dodgers have built themselves a little bit of a rivalry, especially the way we got manhandled by them back in 2018. So, it would have been nice to see them again, but we're not going to see them this year in the World Series if we get there. I doubt it. But it's great. It's fun to see them out there. And the last thing I'll say is, boy, do our Dodger fans travel hard. That is the most amazing thing not in baseball, in professional sports, period, here in the United States anyways, that I've never seen anything like it. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think we impress fans and broadcasters and everyone when they see the sea of blue. We'll go anywhere. I don't care where we play. We will travel. We might be the first ones to Mars. I mean, just because if there's a game out there. So it was fun to watch.
Well, friend of the Carne Asada, Rob Bradford said it. He tweeted it. He said he has never seen another opposing fan base take over Fenway the way the Dodger fans did. And this is coming from before, where the Yankees were visiting 9 times out of the year. I was surprised to hear that from Bradford. Bradford, he covers the Red Sox, so he's there every day. I would have thought for sure there would have been series where the Yankees took over Fenway Park, but he said it. He's never seen an opposing fan base take over a stadium like Fenway Park. Babyface, I want to ask you real quick before we go into the picks. I've been hearing this a lot, and Bradford even said it too, that this Dodger team reminds them a lot of the 2018 Red Sox team that beat the crap out of the Dodgers in the 2018 World Series. Is it just because there's so many Red Sox players on this team that's why it reminds them of the 2018 team? I mean, what is it about this Dodger team that has people saying, even though they have flaws, there's something different about this team?
I mean, I think it's just how they've battled, right? I mean, the beginning of the season, right, we're like, oh man, what type of year is this going to be, right? It was really up and down for a couple months, and then they finally got in that groove where they've been in, and they've shown where they're down in games and they could come back. And I think one of the biggest differences that I keep seeing from this year and probably past years and last year, is they have some of these veterans like Hayward and Peralta that I think are going to play big dividends this season. They're going to come through in those spots where normally like dang, Dodgers couldn't score. Like they had bases loaded, they had a runner on second. Like I think some of these guys are going to pay off this year, and I think that's the biggest difference. That with 2 outs, they're leading like the league, like in average, right? And how many runs they score with 2 outs. And I think that's huge, right? And when you think 2 outs, like, okay, we're almost out of this. But this Dodgers team they'll get runs with 2 outs. And I think that's been the biggest difference. I mean, I said this before. I mean, they're playing great. I hope they keep playing great through September. But then they're going to have that layoff. And I know that's kind of what killed them last year, right? In that first round of the playoffs. And hopefully it just gives them rest this time around, and they're able to come back out of that as strong going into the playoffs.
There it is. All right. So let's get into our picks. For our viewers, our listeners, make sure you submit your picks. You can do it through social media. Reach out to the Bleed Los account, whether it be, I'm still going to call it Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Send it through Twitter, send it through Instagram. Let us know. The viewers are still in the lead. Our listeners are still in the lead. They got a 3-game lead over me. They got a 4-game lead over Babyface, and they got a 5-game lead over La Reina de Playa Larga. So we're going to do 7 games. It's this big 4-game series against the Bravos, and then they go on the road and they play 3 against the Fighting Fish in Miami. So Boatman, let's start off with you.
I think they go 5-2.
Oh wow, everybody's feeling it, right? Okay, 5-2. I will go. Didn't the La Reina de Playa Larga gave us her picks, right?
She went 5-2 also.
So the ladies line is going 5-2. Look, this Bravo series really scares me. The fact that the Dodgers, we don't know who's pitching on Saturday. What do you guys know what's behind that? Is it just to give someone an extra day? Is that why all of a sudden and who do you think, is it going to just be a bullpen game on Saturday?
You're not looking. They have the 5 pitchers, right? They have the 5 to cover it, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe they're going to call up somebody again. Maybe they call up.
It's
Gavin.
Like they're going to go to a 6-man rotation because it's Kershaw, Urias, Lance Lynn, Miller, and then you had the Pepio Yarbrough combination. So they have 5 pitchers, but Miller's going to pitch on Sunday. So why did they push Miller to Sunday? Right. So Saturday, I guess, is going to be a bullpen game. So that's the kind of stuff that makes me nervous. And then they're going to travel cross country. That being said, I think the Dodgers, and when the Fighting Fish were here in Los Angeles, they played them tough. They played them tough. Yeah. They kicked their ass with the first game. And then the second game, they were 3-1 ball games, both of them. So, damn, they keep proving me wrong, but I need to make up some ground here. So I'm not going to go 5-2. I'm going to go 4-3. Babyface?
I mean, so obviously this series against the Braves, I mean, happy 2-2, right? I'm kind of said that with the Padres big 4-game series a while back, but screw it. They're going to take 3 from the Bravos and 2 from the Fish again. So 5-2. I'm going to go 5-2.
Wow. Everybody's feeling the Dodgers right now. So I mean, and you know what's so crazy is I don't know if you guys are wrong because the Dodgers took 2 out of 3 in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So it's not a, you guys aren't wrong. So that's going to
real quick question. So if they took 2 out of 3, right, and and that was a long time ago, right? Obviously, if they win the series 3 out of 4, would you consider the Dodgers the best team in baseball, or do you think the critics will still? Because everybody still considers the Braves the best team in baseball. If the Dodgers beat them this weekend, are the Dodgers the best team in baseball?
Well, if they complete the sweep, they're now literally tied for the best record, right? They would be if they were to sweep because they're 4 games behind. I think. Did the Braves lose today? Or they probably won, but
no, I think that I don't know if they played.
Because I always look at those dumb like power rankings and stupid Ben Verlander freaking always has them at 3rd. That guy's like the biggest Dodger hater there is. I don't know what he's gonna do next when Shohei's on the team because like he loves Shohei. So I don't know what he's gonna have to like change his mentality on the Dodgers or something. But yeah, like I always see them. It's always like the Braves, the Orioles, and the Dodgers. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of respect for the Dodgers still. Like
it's crazy. It's almost like those are the top 3 teams that have the best records, right?
They are.
I mean, maybe that's why they're in the top 3. I mean, look, in terms of, I don't know, man. I think that Atlanta. The problem is when you're going to a short series, right? And the thing is it's the regular season. The Braves right now, they're going to be coming in from Colorado. They're on the road. You have to sit there and wonder. Sometimes there's decisions made where they're trying to rest people. How hard are they really going to try to win these games?
But to me, the difference is when you go out on the road and you win, I think that speaks more than when you win at home, right? You're expected to win at home, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're able to go into another team, especially if the Braves come in here and they sweep or win 3 out of 4, I think that shows more than them winning at home. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So basically, if the Braves win the series, then you're saying the Braves are the better team.
They would look as to be the better team, right? I mean, if they come in and like dominate, right? I mean, I'm kind of I don't think it's going to be like a domination one team or another. I think they're probably going to be all close games, you know?
I'm looking forward to it because this is going to be a test because I feel even though the Diamondbacks were coming in hot, they had won 8 out of 10 coming into the series. The Dodgers,
and that's because half those victories were against the Padres.
So. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. That is the babyface shitting on the Padres. He will never miss an opportunity to shit on the show pods. He saved it for very late in the show. go ahead and bury him again. I mean, I know you buried him 4 weeks ago. I know it gives you great pleasure. Go ahead and bury him again.
Yeah, they're buried. I think their casket even sunk more, if possible. Like it just like keeps sinking.
They might have seceded from the state of California. That's how bad Roger is saying that team is.
I'm very looking forward to the series. I really want to see how the Dodgers match up, only just because, I mean, they're steamrolling everybody. They have not lost a series. It's 9 straight series that they've won now. So it's going to be nuts. And don't look now, but the magic number is now 16. So we are going to get to a point where the Dodgers more than likely will probably clinch by the middle of September. And you're going to have the same scenario that we've had in past years, that for 2 weeks they're going to be playing meaningless baseball. And I think it speaks to what you were saying, Babyface. Would it be better if they were fighting till the end? But we've also seen that same scenario where they fought until the end that year when they were with the Rockies.
See, I don't really buy that meaningless baseball, because technically right now it's meaningless baseball. They're just going out there and playing the games,
but they still
one
have
by
a
one
chance to have the best record.
Yeah, I mean, but still, they're just going out there and putting victory after victory after victory. It's not like anything. This weekend, I think they'll be hyped up for it.
Yeah,
hopefully
I think so too.
they come up hyped up for it. This will be a big weekend.
I think it'll feel like the playoffs out there.
Well, that's going to do it. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast and to our YouTube channel. You ha sido su servidor, Juan Ramírez, de parte de mis colegas, The Boatman, Jason Barquero, and Babyface. Nos vemos para la próxima. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by betonline.ag, where the game starts.